The morning sun hadn't even cleared the windows when Sergeant Harrison's voice tore through the silence of the training hall. His finger jabbed toward her face, close enough that she could feel the heat of his breath. Mud streaked her cheek, her knuckles white around the brown folder pressed to her chest. 40 recruits stood frozen behind them, watching the woman who, until that morning, none of them had taken seriously. Before I tell you what happened next, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I love knowing who's listening. Her name was Recruit Dana Ellery, and for 6 weeks, she had been the quiet one. The one who finished last on the obstacle course, who fumbled her rifle drills, who flinched at orders barked too loudly. The other recruits whispered about her in the chow line. Some pitied her. Most didn't think she'd last. Harrison certainly didn't. He had built a career out of breaking the weak ones before the battlefield could do it for him, and in his eyes, Dana Ellery was the weakest thing he'd seen in years. That morning, she'd been late. Just 90 seconds. But 90 seconds was an eternity to a man like Harrison. He'd ordered her to the front of the formation, made her stand there while he listed every failure she'd accumulated since week 1. Her boots weren't laced right. Her bunk wasn't tight enough. Her aim was an embarrassment. The folder in her arms, thick, sealed, stamped in red ink that read classified, only made it worse in his mind. What business did a recruit have carrying something like that? He snatched at the air near it, demanding to know what she was hiding. She didn't answer. She just held it tighter, her jaw set, her eyes down. Somewhere behind her, a recruit named Briggs muttered something under his breath, and a ripple of nervous laughter moved through the ranks like wind through dry grass. Dana felt it land on her skin like small stones. She thought about her mother, who used to tell her that the quietest people were carrying the heaviest things. She thought about why she was really here, a reason none of them knew, a reason she wasn't allowed to say. She thought she'd never have to explain herself to anyone. She was wrong. Harrison stepped closer. Handed over, Ellery. Now, dust hung suspended in the long morning light, slanting through the high windows, catching every breath, every tremor in the room. The flag at the back wall hung still, as if even it was holding its breath. Dana's hands shook, not from fear, but from the years of training that told her exactly what was at stake if that folder opened in the wrong hands, in the wrong room, in front of the wrong eyes. She had a choice in that instant that no one else in the building understood. Obey the man screaming in her face, or protect something far larger than her own dignity. She chose the latter. "Sergeant," she said, voice steady despite the storm in her chest, "I can't do that." The hall went still. Truly still, the kind of silence that makes a clock somewhere sound impossibly loud. Harrison's face reddened further, his pride wounded in front of 40 witnesses. He opened his mouth to tear into her again, and that was the exact moment the door at the far end of the hall opened. A colonel walked in. Behind him, 2 men in dark suits that didn't belong to any branch of the military at all. The colonel's eyes swept the room once before landing on Dana, and something in his expression shifted, not anger, but recognition, and beneath that, respect. "Stand down, Sergeant," the colonel said. Harrison blinked. "Sir?" "That recruit," the colonel said, nodding toward Dana, "is not your problem this morning. She's mine." He turned to her. "Agent Ellery. Command wants your assessment before noon." The word agent moved through the recruits like an electric current. Briggs, who had laughed minutes earlier, went pale. The murmurs that followed weren't mocking anymore. They were disbelieving, reverent, confused all at once. Harrison stood frozen, his fingers still half raised from where it had been pointed at her face, now hanging useless in the air between them. Dana finally looked up at him. Not with triumph. Not with cruelty. With something far harder for him to absorb, quiet understanding. She had spent 6 weeks letting him believe she was failing, because the mission required her cover to hold, because real strength sometimes wears the face of weakness until the moment it's needed. She didn't owe him an explanation, but she gave him one anyway, because somewhere underneath the humiliation, she had seen the exhaustion in his own eyes. A man who'd spent his life proving he was hard so no one would see how much he carried. 2. "You did your job, Sergeant," she said softly. "You weren't supposed to know." Harrison said nothing. For the first time and longest anyone in that room could remember, the loudest man in the building had no words at all. The colonel led her out, the classified folder still pressed to her chest, the September light catching the dust in the air one last time, as the door swung shut behind them. The recruits stood in stunned silence, and somewhere in that silence, something shifted, a quiet lesson settling into 40 young hearts about how easily we mistake silence for weakness, and how rarely we ask what someone is truly carrying. Because the truth doesn't always announce itself, sometimes it waits in a sealed folder, in calloused hands, in a woman who let herself be underestimated for the sake of something greater. And in that dusty morning light, where humiliation once stood, something far stronger had quietly taken its place. If this story moved you, tell us in the comments what you would have done in that hall. And subscribe, because every week, we bring you stories of strength hiding in the most unexpected places.